Well, good evening and welcome to Toastmasters Unplugged, a podcast initiative from District 71 here in the UK and Ireland. My name's Nigel Smith and I'm going to be your host this evening for episode 7. It's called Top Guns. Top Gun from possibly one of the best films of all time, where you're the 1% of the 1% in the military flying school. But in Toastmasters terms, did you realise that less than 1% of all Toastmasters around the world, and several hundred thousand, about 450,000 Toastmasters, less than 0.5%, actually, not 1%, less than 0.5% achieve DTM, the highest educational accolade and achievement that can be granted on you within Toastmasters International. So tonight we're going to find out a little bit more about what's the draw of being a DTM. What does it do for you? How do you get one? What do you learn along the way? But a little bit about myself before I introduce our guests here this evening. So I'm a past president of Birmingham Boring Speakers. And I have to say that quite carefully. It's not boring speakers, it's boring speakers. And also past president of an online club called PMI UK Changemakers. Now, by day, I'm a project professional, whatever that is, working in the tech sector. But by night, I do a multitude of things. And one of them is giving time back to Toastmasters. So first and foremost, I'd like to start to introduce our panelists here this evening. And Olga, if we could have Sam up, please. Hi, Sam. Good evening.
Hello.
I know Sam has been a Toastmaster for over 15 years. She's chartered 2 clubs. She's done a host of other stuff. She's also a TED talker and a serial DTMer, but more on that in a second. But Sam, is there anything else you want to share about yourself? Maybe give yourself a shout out for your club.
Well, yeah, so Shropshire Speakers is my home club, and we are thriving. And what's really cool is we've polished, we've tweaked it, we've got it into such great shape that we're sort of like a role model club in our division, which is really fantastic. And I hope that we continue to help other clubs by sharing best practice.
Excellent. And I know we share the same area as well, so that's always good indeed. So one for area 39 there. And so thanks for that, Sam. And Olga, could we have Jono up, please? Hi, Jono. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Just a very brief introduction to yourself. So you've been a Toastmaster for 9 years, the Solo DTM Award of 2024. And according to the notes I've got, Jono, you love Lego and kickboxing. So we probably know where you get your dopamine and your oxytocin from, but maybe more on that later. But do you want to give a shout out to your club?
Yep. So I'm the club president for Pegasus Speakers Advanced, and we're an online club for District 71.
Great. Welcome. And Olga, could we have Steve up, please? Hi, Steve. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
How you doing? Are you well?
Very well, thanks.
Excellent. Good. No, I'm good, thanks. I'm fine. So, Steve, you've been a Toastmaster for 11 years. Now, it says here you served 18 months in Belmarsh. Sorry. It says you served as 18 months as division director, which, of course, is one of the prerequisites to becoming on the DTM path. We'll learn more on that later. And I also believe you were PQD last year, which I know is a very lofty position in the district hierarchy. I also recognise from your tab line there, I don't know why you've got MBE before DTM, but maybe we'll have a conversation about that across the course of the evening as well. But again, Steve, would you like to give your club a shout out and maybe any notable mentions about Toastmasters you want to?
Well, I think I'm the single member from District 91 in UK South, so big up the 95s, the 91s this evening. I'm from Andover. The only thing famous about Andover, other than me, I guess, is that it's the home of Twinings tea. So if you're a tea drinker, then Andover is the place to be, apparently, although it can't really offer you much else. But delighted to be here. Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And we'll come and talk to you in just a moment a little bit deeper. And Olga, if you could please have our next guest onto the screen, please, Phil Heath. Hi, Phil. Good evening.
Hi, Nigel.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm very well, thanks.
It feels like we've got a century of Toastmasters experience of DTMs on this call this evening. Because Phil, you've been a Toastmaster for an amazing 22 years. And of course, in Toastmaster, we love triads, don't we? We love the power of three. And Phil, you're on your journey, your third DTM. Okay, third DTM. And you're also a DTM chair. And I know Olga described you as a godfather of DTM. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But before we get into the detail of all of this with everyone individually, Phil, do you just want to give a shout out for your club?
Yeah, I'm currently at Strictly Speaking in Harrogate. I'm the VPE there at the moment. I'm also now moving to Leeds City. So in the new year, I'll be a member there as well. So really trying to expand my speaking skills.
Excellent, excellent. And for everyone watching here this evening, I'm going to give you a brief glimpse of what this is all about. So this was my DTM award from 2023. I didn't have the exclusivity rather of Jono just being the sole DTM that particular year, but nonetheless a remarkable achievement. I was very proud to do that. So let's dive into a little bit more detail, get to know our guests a little bit more. Olga, if you could if you could remove Jono, Phil and Steve. Sam, I'll start with you and you can tell us about your incredible DTM journey. Now, just for the benefit of people on the call here this evening who are a Toastmaster and wondering what's DTM all about, can you put it in a sentence, Sam, about what is it about a DTM and why should people take a look into it?
Well, I think I might call it a master's in communication and leadership. But it's an alternative way of learning than the usual university kind of route. So it might suit different learners. Yeah.
Cool. And again, just for the benefit of people on the call, I just want to summarize what it takes to achieve a DTM. So you have to complete 2 learning pathways, serve as a club officer for either 2 6-month terms or 1 12-month term, club officer, president, VPE, VPM, something like that. You've also got to serve a 1-year term as a district leader, and that could be an area director, division director, and other loftier positions. Successfully serve as a club mentor or coach, or I think successfully complete as a club sponsor or conduct a speech, craft or youth leadership program, complete a DTM project, and also be involved in the club success plan and be involved in some elements of club officer training. I think I've got all those down properly there. Out of all of those, Sam, what was the most enjoyable for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I did love delivering the youth leadership program. It's very rewarding to go into a classroom of 15 to 20 young people who haven't found their voice yet, and a lot of kids haven't. And then 10 weeks later, to see them in a showcase speaking from the heart to teachers, parents, and friends alike in the audience. Absolutely amazing. Massive transformation for them. So that's probably the most rewarding part of it for me.
So the rewarding part is seeing the change in others of a really young age and the difference you've made to their lives as well. That sounds pretty incredible. But I'm interested, Sam, because you haven't just done 1 DTM, you haven't just done 2, but actually you're on your way to a 3rd. So what is the motivation that drives you further forward to keep achieving?
So my husband calls me Muttley, if you remember that character from Races, who'll pretty much do anything for a medal. So I'm a bit like that. I'm a big fan of certificates, medals and trophies. It's probably something there in my childhood I should look at, but that's the way I roll. And I really love being able to then pass on my knowledge, my experience to other people. That really gives me such a massive buzz. So I think that's what drives me forward. I've never felt that the DTM was the end of the road. I always felt like the first DTM was just an underlining of what I'd achieved so far. And oh, look, there's another DTM to be had. So off I go again.
So does that mean there might be a 4th in the offing? Will you keep going as long as you're a Toastmaster, do you think? Or is there a natural conclusion?
Definitely. So that before a recent change, there were 11 paths available to people, and I've done 10 of them. So I've only got one to finish off, and I've done the whole old cohort, and then I'll be starting again, obviously. So yeah, I'm just going to keep rocking and rolling, and as time allows, I'll step back into things like district roles and just support people where I can. I love seeing people flourish. It's a real buzz.
Excellent. And I know we spoke sort of off air just before we started our conversation this evening. And I know that for people thinking, oh, it's 2 pathways, I've got to repeat it all over again, I've got to start with the icebreaker and do this. You've come up with a really useful technique of how to approach pathways the second time through. Do you want to share that with everyone here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the people who don't know what Pathways is, who might be watching, it's our training program, and there are 5 levels. And within each level, there are projects that you undertake. Well, there's a sort of a conventional route that you take where you're building on the previous project's knowledge and experience that you've gained in order to help you to become more than a competent, a proficient speaker. Well, when you've kind of done that, you might be thinking, well, I've become a proficient speaker. It feels a bit weird doing it all again if you don't feel like you need to hone your skills. So you can, in fact, use that pathway to achieve a specific goal. And of course, you're always building on your skills all the time. The more chance you have to speak, the better. So, for instance, I would use the pathway that's called dynamic leadership to build a speaker business. And instead of starting at level 1, I'd go all the way to level 5, pick up the high performance leadership project and use that as like a timeline, a project plan, if you will, to build a speaker business using all of the component parts of the path, which you need. They fit in beautifully to help you build a speaker business, which a lot of Toastmasters want to do, even as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really interesting. And just to separate away from DTM a little bit, I know that because I've seen you, and I don't think I've competed with you, but you've been very out there in terms of contests over the years, even getting to district final levels. Is the learning and the journey that you get through contests similar in nature to DTM? I'm just thinking here about stuff that pushes you outside your comfort zone, and how does that accelerate growth?
So doing the contests was something I chose to do because I find it very difficult. And I'm very Yoda about this, I have to say, Nigel. It's do or do not. There is no try.
No try, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So either just pull your socks up and get on with it, or don't do it. And I'm come on, you're scared to death of it. That's why you should do it. And there's the growth part, yeah? And every time I've done it, now, I don't tend to physically shake when I speak on stage. Usually, I'm really quite confident generally because I'm speaking about something I know. I don't feel like I'm being judged. As soon as I get into the contest arena, I feel like I'm shaking like a leaf because the game has changed. And that's a really excellent place to put myself in that space. Because what if I push myself further in my business and I'm speaking in front of 5,000 people with a microphone in my hand? Maybe that will feel a similar way, and I will have had some practice on how that feels to move through the fear. So all it does is build my toolkit of confidence, kicking away that imposter syndrome, and helping me feel like, yeah, I'm here for the audience. This is the right thing to do.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Sam. And can I share something with the people here tonight on the call? Because I think I've known you probably for about 6 or 7 years, and I was staggered when I first met you. I think you were area director at the time. We had a bit of a conversation, and you told me that you were actually an introvert, which I could not believe. Because there's obviously Private Sam and Toastmaster Sam, and clearly it's a bit of an art and a performance, but a very professional one. But really, it was just to echo the fact, because you are as well a TEDx speaker. You've done all you've ticked up most of the things off the box there in terms of achievement, the gathering all the medals and stuff. But really just something to say that, that your journey, I guess, is pretty similar to most other people that join in Toastmasters. And what perhaps has been your biggest learning from when you first started all the way through your DTM escapade, your contests and everything else you've done? what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself, would you say?
I would say that as an autistic and ADHD woman, I came into Toastmasters not knowing how to be a really great human with other humans. I didn't have any friends. I used to be very unpopular because I was very direct. Wasn't great at feedback. And Toastmasters changed everything for me. And I have flourished since being in Toastmasters and continue to do so. So if anybody is struggling with communication, if they're getting feedback at work that their behaviours aren't exactly right, Toastmasters is a great place to come to learn those very social, very soft skills, as well as the technical skills of communication and leadership. So that's the biggest thing that I've got out of it, that it really did change my life.
And you've got so many more friends now.
I do. Real friends. And we've got something in common. Toastmasters.
Indeed, absolutely. Okay, well, it's time for you to go now, so I want to call you back a little bit later. Thanks for joining us now. And Olga, could we please have Steve on the virtual event for us? Thank you so much. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Nigel. Hello.
How you doing? And thanks for coming all the way from District 91. It is a family, of course, Toastmasters, and welcome. And you've been a member of Toastmasters now for around 11 years. Now we're into 2025. And I've seen that you've done a number of high-profile roles, rather. So is it we'll get onto DTM in just a little bit, but is it the speaking side of Toastmasters that drives you, or is it the more leadership part, would you say?
Well, it's a great question. So I always tell the story that I came to Toastmasters because I'm one of those weirdos. I'm one of those weirdos in that I'm not one that was afraid of public speaking. I love public speaking. I didn't realise that I love public speaking until I started to do it by accident. I've got some responsibility in the recreational cricket world, and I had to one day do a presentation because the chairman didn't turn up. So I was there with 100 cricketers after this cup final with the trophies, with nobody to present. So I had to do it. And then I realised how much I loved it. And I discovered Toastmasters. My club is Wessex Speakers in Winchester. I discovered that just 10 miles away is at my local club. And I use Toastmasters as a bit of a gym for public speaking because I love it. But as with any skill, you have to keep practicing it. And I wanted to try different techniques. One of the things that I hate doing is reading my speeches. So I actually forced myself doing one of the, in the previous education system, one of the manuals was actually to do speaking by reading. So I forced myself into sort of, focusing on that part of speaking. And then very quickly, I discovered the world of Toastmasters, how big Toastmasters is, and really how vast the leadership opportunity is if you want to do that. And because I really, as a prolific volunteer, have the inability generally to say the word no when somebody says, can you help with something? That then just snowballed into various positions that I took on. And clearly I'm very proud right now in this Toastmaster year to be serving as the head of District 91 as the district director. So really that's the summary really of the journey, as it were.
Wow, so actual Toastmasters royalty here tonight. So congratulations on that. Fantastic. So talking of that, I noticed you've got an MBE in your name there. Did you get tongue-tied in front of royalty?
It was with, at the time he was Prince of Wales, but obviously he's now the King. So I can say that this hand shook hands with the Sovereign when I went to Buckingham Palace in 2018. But no, I didn't get tongue-tied. The first thing he said to me was, has somebody given you the day off for this young man today? And I said, yes, Your Royal Highness, they have. So luckily I managed to get my words out. So success there.
Excellent, excellent. And I bet that was a great experience. So what comes close then, Steve? Was it meeting the King in Waiting, or was it your DTM?
I was very proud to receive my DTM, but no question, I was even prouder, for obvious reasons, to receive from Her late Majesty, the MBE. But I just to be transparent with our listeners, I received my DTM in the Legacy program, so before Toastmasters came along, and I joined in 2014 and achieved my DTM by 2018. So I had there was a limited time that you could qualify under the old scheme, And so I used my skills of sort of, setting objectives and setting targets for myself to make sure that I achieved it in the time that was available. And I managed to do it, which I was very pleased about.
Excellent. There's nothing more to drive motivation than an imposed deadline. So
Exactly.
Wonderful story. And a DTM in old money is as good as a DTM in new money. And are you on a charge for a second one at all? Do you see that?
Yes, I've just started. I've done a second path, but actually I've just started the third path. So I'm well underway in terms of the pathway requirements, so the educational award requirement. Obviously, last year I was program quality director. This year district director. So I've got 2 extra district credits in the bag for serving as a district officer. And then once I step down as district director or roll off the executive committee the year after next, that's when I need to start thinking about that new club or supporting a new club. So I won't be able to do it very quickly because clearly I've got a lot of responsibility now, and next year it's additional responsibility as the immediate past district director. So it is taking a bit of a back foot, but it is there, and I have a sort of a pencil plan to activate the second one at the right time.
Excellent. Are you a little bit of a medal collector like Sam? So you like to have them all hanging on your wall? It's there to be achieved.
So I think they're important to do, and it's not a bad target to have. But I met somebody at the international convention last year that's got 6 DTMs. I'm not one. I want to get a pathway one. I may one day have a third, but it's really not on my radar to do it. But I do think having a goal and having an objective and holding yourself accountable is really important. But it was interesting listening to Sam about contests, because this probably will amaze people, but or maybe not, thinking about the leadership responsibility I've taken. I have never entered a Toastmasters contest at any level. Because often people say, "Oh, Steve, could you be the contest chair? Could you be the chief judge? Would you mind judging? Would you mind doing this?" And I just haven't had the opportunity. So I promised myself that when I roll off the District 91 executive team in 2 years' time, that's one thing that I do want to tick off, which is the journey and the development that contests will bring. So I've got a couple of non-leadership focus areas, the DTM being one, contest being another. And it was great to reflect on what Sam said, because it's very much in keeping with my own goal, I think.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. And just a few more specifics about your DTM. One of the things I called out on the inventory of stuff that you've got to achieve to get a DTM is actually a DTM project. Can you just talk us through what it is that you did?
Yeah, so in the old system, the high performance leadership project, which is now in level 5 of pathways, was something that you had to do. So effectively that was the DTM project. And I did a project during my year as president of my club to every opening I did for every meeting was a letter of the alphabet relating to Toastmasters leadership opportunity. And I wrote a training session and a manual to really bring alive what the leadership opportunity was within Toastmasters, and did it through my club. So it was about enabling leadership opportunity, or rather enabling awareness of leadership opportunity in Toastmasters, because I think it is an untapped thing that people don't realise. But a lot of people come to Toastmasters for public speaking. But of course, the strapline of Toastmasters on an international level is where leaders are made. And I think there is lots of evidence that that can be the case if you're aware about where the opportunity is and how you can tap into it.
Absolutely. And in fact, aside from speaking and leadership, I'd also add on there active listening or evaluation of feedback. And I think the most important thing about Toastmasters for me, a little bit like what Sam was alluding to, it's about community. That's sharing the spirit of like-minded people. I tend to rise in that sort of environment. So that legacy, Steve, clearly lives on past the project that you did there. But before we just end this particular segment with yourself, what perhaps is the biggest thing that you learned about yourself during your DTM journey?
I think that you can prove to yourself, and I proved to myself, that if you put your mind to something, you can do it, like building a new club, which is what I did. You think to yourself, there's no way that I can do that. Oh my goodness, look at how many steps are involved in that. It's not going to work. Then you amaze yourself that you do. But just to add something, again, in relation to what Sam said, I've stolen this line a bit. I use it occasionally on posts on social media. I think while Toastmasters is where leaders are made, it's also where friendships are made as well. And so
Yes.
I think in terms of the network that I have been within and the friendships I have gathered because of Toastmasters, it is pretty unbelievable. I mean, I was sort of surrounded by the cricketing world before I came around Toastmasters, and really it's a unbelievable group of people that you can connect with. So I think we, again, as much as leadership is the untapped realization of what Toastmasters can bring, actually you can underestimate the friendships and the network that you can create as well, which is fantastic. So, you know, there's so much there's something for everybody in Toastmasters, which I think is brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing, Steve. We'll come back to when we wrap up towards the end, but thanks for sharing your sort of takeaways and experiences of your particular journey. Olga, if we could please bring Jono to the floor, please. Hey, Jono. Good evening.
Hey, Nigel. Good evening.
How are you doing?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. How are you?
I think I'm very well. Thanks for asking. I think in the 9 years that you've been a Toastmaster, you've achieved some incredible things, particularly not just your DTM, but also, mentoring advanced clubs during the COVID duration where you mentored all those folks to get online and stuff. And you were the sole DTM award of 2024. How did that make you feel?
Well, I was surprised because my district director told me, or divisional director, sorry, told me, "Oh, you're the sole achiever for DTM last year." I was pretty surprised, to be fair. It's not something I was aiming for, of course. It was just I was surprised that no one else was going for their DTMs, to be fair, because I thought everyone, is just steadying on and achieving as normal. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to be recognized as the solo DTM, but I feel like it's a milestone in my journey more than anything else.
Interested, thanks. Now, of course, one of the criteria for a DTM is to do a district role, and I guess in your case that would have been area director. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct. It was the area director, and that was during the pandemic,
Okay.
just as we went to lockdown. So I was transitioning into taking over area director in March. Well, before March, it was when that's when lockdown was happening, for those that remember. And then our election process wasn't until July to take over. However, because the previous area director was also stepping down, also had personal stuff going on, I had to step up in transitioning everyone, in supporting that, to move everyone onto online. So that was a interesting period.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think for most people listening online, they'll probably do an area director or a division director role as part of that qualification. Can you just share maybe some of your experiences of what you got up to as an area director, and was the squeeze worth the juice, as they say?
It was completely different because we were traditionally a physical club, Toastmasters public speaking. We're all in face-to-face. So the whole transition to move everyone from offline to online was a completely different game changer for everyone already. Plus, everyone having to learn new technology, new systems, new ways of speaking, and new ways of communicating through the screen like this. It's completely new communication skills that's had to be developed. Although it's something that we probably all did at work at some point, is do an online presentation, a webinar, some sort of PowerPoint slide presentation. But to use it as a way to communicate with your friends, your family on a day-to-day basis during the pandemic, and then to use it for still improving your communication skills and your listening skills through online communication, is already how should I say it, difficult already. The connection is harder. You have to look at your camera, and you're not looking all over the place. You're not being distracted by your cats and your dogs and everything else that's going on around the house. But during that time, moving everyone online, instead of doing club visits, it was just booking myself into everyone's meetings which it saved me driving to the clubs, and then that you save a lot of petrol. Driving to your physical clubs to do your club visits, you just hop online and just join them. And so the whole experience of doing a online area director role was, I suppose, more interesting, but also different from what you originally know from watching other previous area directors do their job. You used to see them in person, come do club visits, good to see them. But somehow you just now online, you just jump onto someone else's meeting. So it's more different.
Cool. And clearly you've been on the virtual side. You've also been on the in-person side, in your clubs. What would you say is the biggest difference between online and in-person?
Connection. It's as human beings, I think we just love the physical connection of meeting people in general, the eye contact, the handshakes, all those. You can't really get that as much from online. It's not the same. And so that's what I would say is probably the biggest difference.
Okay, well, thanks, Jono, for sharing that. Now, as part of your DTM process, did you be a club coach or a club mentor, or did you do speechcraft? Or
I was a club mentor for Pegasus Speakers, which is what I'm club president for at the moment. Okay. When we first founded Pegasus Speakers, they needed a club mentor to help steer and guide the club. So I volunteered myself to be a club mentor to go through that process and make sure that the club is stable and established. So that was my role.
And just for the benefit of the people on the call here that perhaps don't necessarily know what a club mentor does, do you just want to talk through maybe 2 or 3 of the key actions that you took or the support that you gave?
Club mentor essentially is making sure that all the committee members know what their roles are. They're doing their roles properly. They have the systems or the right tools in the process. They're following the right, I suppose, achievements of hitting the CP points. But essentially just staying on track and staying focused. Those are the key elements.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. I'm just going to ask you a little off-topic question here. But so you've clearly done at least 2 pathways in your Toastmasters career. You've been a Toastmaster for 9 years. Can you maybe just share maybe the most memorable speech you've ever done in Toastmasters?
Most memorable speech would be my comeback speech. I say comeback speech is one when just after my dad passed away, I decided to come back to Toastmasters because I took a few years out, and it took me a while to get over the whole bereavement process. And it was more of a kickstart for myself, really. I've been doing a lot of things around the house for my mom, for my family, and taking care of everyone else, but I've left myself behind. So I decided to kickstart my Toastmasters journey as such. And I suppose that's when going through that speech was the process of grievance, grieving and dealing with the mental health struggles and the challenges that I had gone through. And that was also a stepping stone for me to share about my mental health challenges, and started to help out my local men's mental health support group called the Man Cave. And since then, I've been able to help them and volunteer as a speaker for them to become a paid speaker for them to raise donations and fundraising and talks, and just raise awareness about men's suicide, things about depression, anxiety, and the importance of talking and speaking and talking about their challenges.
That sounds excellent. And by the sound of it, Jono, a very cathartic experience, which actually led to defining your next steps as a person and as an individual in life as well. So that's amazing. The one thing I just want to finally ask you about, I've got mine here from a couple of years ago. What was it like when you opened the envelope and held it for the first time and actually stuck it on the wall? What sort of thoughts were going through your mind?
What was going through my mind? I was just surprised. It was one of those, wow, I can't believe I made it in achieving the DTM, because when I've essentially started the Toastmasters journey as such, I was just a shy, introverted kid. I was the geeky kid who enjoyed, my background is digital marketing. So IT and just being behind the screen in corporate world and all those, don't really speak to many people unless I have to. Don't really want to do reports and presentations unless I really have to. Those kind of, that role. And so when I first started, just going through the transformation journey of seeing how far I've come from being a shy kid who didn't want to do webinars, who didn't want to do podcasts, who didn't want to do public speaking, and had trouble communicating and expressing my emotions and myself in general. I was able to just be proud, I suppose, in how far I've come in achieving the DTM, because it wasn't something I aimed for.
Mhm.
It wasn't a goal of mine. I always heard about it when you meet people who goes, this member is a DTM, or this club president, or this person is a club DTM. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. You just meet them as they are, really. And I never really saw myself as someone who would achieve one. And for me to have my hands on one was already something that I was like, wow, I'm amazed about how far I've come.
Well, I think we've got more in common than you might let on to there, because my journey is very similar to yourself in all of that. But I will just finish this segment by asking a question, which I think I know the answer to, but I'll let you explain anyway, Jono. So, was it the journey, or was it the destination?
It's always going to be the journey for me. Life is a journey itself, and for Toastmasters, I see it as when I first started, and you mentioned Lego bricks, so here's a Lego brick that I say.
Yeah.
It's about overcoming the fears, the anxieties, and then you stack it, you build it on top. You got your confidence, you build your mindset, you start building your public speaking and your active listening skills, and then eventually you start building piece by piece, and you start achieving your goals, and before you know it, you've achieved your final result. And that's one of the most beautiful thing about Toastmasters, is that it's about enjoying the journey, and don't focus so much about the pathways, the club coach, the roles, because when I first started, it was always about saying yes to opportunities, saying yes to the club roles. It was all about helping the club succeed. It was never about what I'm going to achieve out of this. It was, how can I help someone else achieve what they want in Toastmasters? And through the servant leadership side, I was able to accumulate all the different roles and skills to become, make achieving a DTM realistic, because it was never on my radar at all.
Wonderful. And I love that creative bit of Lego building as you're going along there to create that metaphor. So is there a second DTM in there for you somewhere?
I've never thought about it. Again, should it arise, then I would go for it, but it's not one that I'm going to be like gunning for, kind of thing. It's like, if it happens, it happens. That's cool. If it doesn't, that's I'm fine with either way. I've achieved what I set out. Well, I didn't really set out for it, but I achieved what I the goal that I wanted in a way.
Excellent. Well, Jono, thanks so much for sharing. We will return to you towards the end when we have a bit of a summary and a bit of a wash up. So thank you so much. Olga, could we have Phil to the floor, please? Hi, Phil. How are you doing?
Good evening, Nigel.
Thank you so much for waiting. I know we chatted at the start, in the green room, the virtual green room, but it's really great to see you. And you have been described as the godfather of DTM, and we'll come on to that in just a moment. But you've been a Toastmaster for an amazing 22 years. I'm sure I was still at school 22 years ago. So you were doing some great things in Toastmasters during that time. And of course, you're onto your third DTM path, a little akin to Sam. So just for the benefit of folks on the call here, what is the attraction about what you learn or the achievements of Distinguished Toastmaster?
I think the learning side of it is about your own, really your own skill, your own benefit. It's all about internally, how am I going to grow as a person? I think Toastmasters helps you do that, and the DTM pathway helps that even more. My first DTM, when I achieved it, I was at a bit of a loss, and I went to one of the district conferences, and I was dancing with the district director or district governor at the time, and I just said to her, what do I do now? I've achieved DTM. And she said 3 magic words to me, and I repeat these as often as I can. All she said to me was, do it again. And those 3 words stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, how can I now do this again and challenge myself to do things slightly differently, to do things in a different way, but actually achieve something that helps me grow? And that's why I approached a second DTM. And the third one, I then again wanted to challenge myself under the new pathways, so having a different approach. So I'd done 2 of the traditional. Now I thought, well, let's have a third under pathways, and let's see how I can make that different, and how can I grow from that as well.
So it's almost a parallel to what Steve's doing as well, one in sort of old money and one in the new pathway system as well. Yeah. Excellent. So tell us a little bit, because I know Phil, that you've sponsored clubs, and again, for the benefit of the people on the call and listening in here tonight that probably don't know what's involved in doing that, what are the sort of things you get involved with, and how do you support a club through that process?
I think the main thing is to be involved and have the time and the commitment to go regularly attend a meeting. And then it's trying to encourage people to take on roles. You can't build a club by yourself. So you need to then encourage people to take on the behind the scenes roles, the presidency, the treasurer, the secretary, the roles that build the committee. But you also then need to run fulfilled meetings so that people can come along and enjoy what they do when they come along, and then enjoy and want to come back. And that's the main thing, is trying to get people to return to a meeting. So they have to be fun. I used to call it, it's formal informality is how we run the meetings. So we have an agenda, but hey, we're there to have fun. So it's not all about strict. It's all about fun. But it's all then about learning. So it's just trying to get people to understand that Toastmasters isn't just this formal handshake and we're a clique, or we're at the old boys club. It's not about that. It's about helping everybody to learn and to benefit from the program.
Well, I'm really glad you said that, Phil, because I know when I set up a club as part of my DTM, one of the strap lines I used was fun over formality, rather, because for new people into Toastmasters, it can be a little bit daunting with all the regulation and the process, which of course adds great value to what we do. But my take on it was to do it in a light-hearted way, because didn't Dr. Ralph Smedley say we learn at times of enjoyment, or best enjoyment, and therefore enjoy, you're going to get more from it. So I'm glad you've shared that, and I also do like your strap line of do it again. Because it strikes a chord into me saying, and the other thing you said quite unique in there is do it again, but do it differently and learn different things. And again, that speaks to me of Toastmasters is much more than just the speaking excellence. It is about leadership. And now, as I mentioned before, I'm a project professional in my daily life. So the leadership part and the planning and the organisation really does speak to me. But I think one of the other things on your very impressive Toastmasters CV, Phil, that you once upon a time actually organised a district conference. And again, I guess that could be considered to be a DTM project, if that's indeed what you used it for. But maybe you could share with some of the listeners here, maybe some of the learnings from that process, or what you got involved in.
Well, that was a phenomenal time in my career with Toastmasters. I used it as my high performance leadership for my first DTM. But the idea was to have a committee. We had a committed team of people. But what we did was, again, we made it fun. So we met outside Toastmasters, we met at each other's houses, but we always revolved around food. So the meeting had some form of food around it. We brought food, we had a social environment, but we had a strict time limit and an agenda. And we went through the agenda, we finished on time every meeting, but we had fun and we had food. And I think that's the important thing. It's about having a structure. And that's what Toastmasters really gives you the strength to do. You have the structure in Toastmasters, but it then allows you to expand around that and have fun while you're doing these projects. And if you don't find it fun, then don't do it. That's always been my motto, is just, if it's not fun,
Don't do it.
then don't do it.
Well, I found the new effing Toastmasters now, which is food as well as fun. So thanks so much for sharing that. Now, one of the other things, we all know in Toastmasters, if you want to get a lot out, you have to put a lot in. And typically, my experience, you can put 100% into Toastmasters and get 150% out. Mathematically, that never exists, but you can get a lot more out. Now, what we want to try and do here this evening is get people away from Netflix and Amazon Prime and all those other things to invest into Toastmasters. But from your own experience, bearing in mind you're now on your third DTM path, how much time and investments would you say it takes, either on a weekly or a monthly basis, and also across what period of time, Phil, does it take to achieve this sort of accolade?
Well, I think if you're doing it to benefit yourself, then I would think 3 to 4 years is probably a time. If you want to speed through it, then yes, you could probably achieve it by joining 5-6 different clubs. You can speed through it, but then are you actually going to learn, and are you actually going to get the benefit from it? So I would think 3 to 5 years would be a reasonable amount of time. What I do find wrong in the Toastmaster journey and the DTM journey is that Toastmasters don't allow you to open the DTM path until you're halfway through your second pathway. And I always believe that you should know what is the criteria for DTM before you start anything, because you need 2 pathways, and we need to have these opened out early so that you can then think, well, I need to do this, I need to have a year on a committee, I need to serve on the district at some point. So you need all this information. So I've created a spreadsheet with all that information on that. I'm more than happy to share. And as DTM chair, I've been producing these videos on the Wednesday night and helping people understand the DTM journey. So it's
that's a fantastic advert and a segue and a link in to perhaps then for a moment, Phil, just talk a little bit more about that, because there might be people interested on the call here tonight. We want to get that 0.5%, 1% up to 2 or 3% across the Toastmasters community. Just talk about the service you provide and where people can go and find all these resources.
Well, the key thing is they can always email me, and I'll just send any information out that they want on the pathway. So I can help them open the pathway when they've just started their Toastmaster journey, rather than waiting till level 3 in pathway 2. And it's about trying to find out what's that information. There is some information online, but you can't open the pathway in your own system until you've actually gone down that route. You have to apply to Toastmasters to do it. So it's a bit of a convoluted route, but I've got the information available just to help people.
So perhaps you can put your contact details as a follow-up to this, or maybe folks can stalk you on LinkedIn, I guess, and hunt you down. But what I found in Toastmasters is that any Toastmaster I've come across, generally speaking, is much happy to help everyone else. I think Jono was saying just before, very altruistically about giving back to something bigger than himself. And it's a trait that I find in many Toastmasters. So thank you for...
Come back to that question about how many hours. My plan has always been, from day one when I started with Toastmasters, was my weekly meeting, the Toastmaster meeting, always went in the diary at the beginning of the year. And that time to go to the club meeting is sacrosanct. And that's my development time. So I build that in. When people say, I don't have time for Toastmasters, no, it's about me. It's about your own development time. So you have to make that time. And if you want to learn and you want to benefit from friendship, fun and food, then come to Toastmasters. So but you need to invest in that time. Put it in your diary. So mine's already now in the diary for the year.
Excellent. And what that speaks to me is be very intentional about what you do. And another triad of friendship, fun, and food, which we should bring to all of our meetings. Some amazing takeaways, as well as do it again. Do you think there'll be a do it again after Distinguished Toastmaster number 3?
It's possible, but you've already alluded. I'm getting to be the godfather. I'm getting a little bit old in the tooth now, but I know that there are a lot more members across the world that are a lot older than me. So I'm hoping to carry on. So as long as I'm able to attend a meeting, as long as I'm able to, then yes, I'll carry on doing it.
Good for you. And I guess there's no horses' heads lying around anywhere.
No, not yet.
Right, thank you so much, Phil. And Olga, could we please bring to the screen all of our panelists this evening, so we can just have a bit of a get together. I'm just going to check what I will do. I'll start with Sam, and then we'll work our way around to Steve and Jono and Phil. Maybe will I just scan the comments for just a minute? Sam, if you can just start off by saying what's the most important thing either you've shared or you've heard on this call tonight that might be a nugget of wisdom for the people who are listening in.
Well, I absolutely love what Phil just said. It's about that commitment to your personal development, because no one else can do it for you. You have to commit. You have to say, this is a priority in my life. And I can say for a fact, if you do, it works and you can achieve your goals. So 100%. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you. Jono, anything speak to yourself?
I think we were saying the same thing. I also believe in it. I try and make it different, but the theme is very similar to what Sam just said, is that personal commitment. And I think for someone who struggled with anxiety and fear of public speaking and judgment, and someone who's been bullied and overcome discrimination, fear of judgment and the anxiety of public and finding your voice, it's something that's very scary, but it's doable if you put your mind to it. And again, if it's something that's very, very important to you, you need to put in the time and effort to make it work. If it's something that you struggle with, it's not getting you any results, it's not getting you anywhere in achieving your goals, then do something about it. Don't wait. Because only you have the power and the action to do so.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, John. I was reflecting actually, because again, my journey is fairly similar to your own. And I think when I went through it, when I first heard about DTM, I thought, no way. And I think it goes back to a little bit like what Phil says. It's like pretty difficult to start. It's difficult to find out what it is you actually need to do. It just felt beyond me. But when I actually finished, I think the words I said to myself on achieving it was, I'm good enough. I was good enough to do that. And from that, I am enough. So a bit of a transformational journey for myself. So I would encourage anyone that maybe listening to this thinking it's beyond me. Hopefully the stories you've heard this evening will give you that inspiration and motivation to say, you know, as Phil would say, well, maybe not do it again, but just do it. You know, the old Nike strap line there. But let's go to Steve next. Steve, what sort of resonated with you from this evening's conversation the most?
Do you know what? It made me remember how we talk about the Distinguished Club program, which I know is a completely different thing. But we say in District 91 that if you do the right things as a healthy club, you will automatically achieve your DCP points. You don't need to think of it as a separate set of activity. Just do it naturally. And I think DTM is very similar to that. If you want to do some pathways, if you want to get involved with new members, if you want to get involved with building clubs, if you want to try some of the leadership opportunity, then actually some of it you'll naturally gravitate towards to be able to get your DTM. So it's not all about, let me get a DTM and what being a DTM is all about. It's actually about the component parts of it, which if you think of it in that way, of the journey, then you might well be able to tick off a lot of it without even thinking about it. And I think for me, in all of our discussions tonight, that has reminded me that it's about the sum of the parts rather than the actual award itself, which is nice to have. And as you've shown in the plaque, it's a lovely thing to have. And you know, you go to some clubs and people treat you, you know, a little bit like mini royalty when they say, oh, and by the way, they've got a DTM. So instantly that expectation is there and you think, oh my God, what are they going to ask me to do? But it is about those component parts, which I don't think we should forget about. And naturally, you'll be able to tick off some of them, I think.
Yeah, and I guess the sum of all those parts is greater than the whole when we look at the entire thing in itself. But thank you so much for sharing there, Steve. And Phil, how about you?
Well, I've always thought active listening was a great skill to have. So what was the question?
Make one up. No, the question was, through our conversation this evening, Phil, not just from what you've shared yourself, but maybe from some of the other panelists, what's the one thing you've heard or has resonated with you highly as like a learning takeaway from this evening's discussion?
I think what I've learned from not only from tonight, but also from Toastmasters is how diverse Toastmasters as a group is. When I sponsored Sheffield, we had 11 languages in the club. Now that's phenomenal when you think that the wide range of people coming in, how I'm learning from all these different languages, the different cultures. And that's the beauty of Toastmasters wherever you go. And I've been to different clubs across the world and visited those clubs. It's still the same similar format, but with so much difference and diversity. And I think that's the great thing about Toastmasters, is that we welcome everybody into the family of Toastmasters. And to me, that's the power of Toastmasters. It's about learning from each other, with each other, and having fun along the way.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Phil. We're coming close to the end, but I got a couple of minutes left, believe it or believe it not. Now, I guess where I want to go now is I still want to go around the room very quickly again. And I don't want to ask the twee question, if someone's thinking about starting the DTM pathway, what would you recommend? Because it's just going to be just start and all the rest of it. So maybe if you could give a very concise answer as I come around. I'll come to yourself first, Sam, so I'll tee you up with this. The biggest difference it's made to your life?
It gave me the tools I need to thrive at work. And work is important because if I can't work, I can't earn money, I can't pay my mortgage and all the good stuff that we do with money, right? So for it to have that massive impact, it can change your life. So yeah, that's it.
Life changing. Thanks for sharing, Sam. Steve, how about you?
I think, as I said earlier, Toastmasters has given me so many more people that I can be proud to call my friends. I think the macro objective is to become a better speaker. The micro objective, the DTM helps you to do that by taking it one step at a time.
Thank you. And Joni, I think you've probably covered this a couple of times already, but the biggest change you saw in yourself?
Connection of other people. And that is one that I would say, but also making the network and support that I have never really got elsewhere. It's just like Phil has touched upon, Sam and Steve has all mentioned, it's like a family. It's not blood related, but everyone pushes you and challenges you and still lifts you up and gets you going, help you overcome your fears and your challenges. And it's a beautiful place that's made a huge difference in my life, but also in my relationship and personal relationship in people that surround me.
Thank you for sharing. And Phil, what's the best takeaway you've had from your DTM journey, would you say?
Oh, good question, because I think that, is there any one thing? I think I've learnt a lot about myself, that I approached Toastmasters that I was very shy at one point. I suffered from depression, so my story is quite down at the start, and I joined and found the power of Toastmasters, and that helped me become a better, more confident person to stand in front of an audience, to be able to speak with confidence has helped me enormously. But that's not just the DTM journey, that was the journey of Toastmasters, and I think that's important. It's not just about the DTM. Yes, it's a nice to have, and I was certainly, when I opened my package, when I got it, I was overcome with emotion because it was just a fabulous little trophy that I had, and then I'm quite proud to to display it. So it's actually on the wall at the side of me here. And yeah, we collect badges. I've got loads of these badges around. And Sam's got loads as well. So is it about the badges? No, it's about the people. And for me, that's always what Toastmasters is about. My favourite saying, I'll just throw this one in, Waldo Emerson, was, "Fear is the law of life. Those who live in the past or get stuck in the present are bound to miss the future." And I think if you just follow that maxim and just think, what's the future? What does it hold for me? A third DTM? No, it holds just more communication, more leadership, and more fun and friendship with people that I want to be with.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Phil. We are at time. We are going to finish. We love the rule of 3 here at Toastmasters. I'm going to finish with a 4, and it's going to be family, friendship, fun. And what's the final one, Phil?
Food.
Food. Okay, folks, thanks so much for tuning in this week. Thanks so much to Sam, to Jono, to Steve, to the Godfather, Phil. Again, I've been your host, Nigel Smith. It's been an absolute blast to learn from such esteemed colleagues and panelists here at Toastmasters. We'll catch you for the next session, maybe in a couple of weeks' time. Look out on your social LinkedIn feeds and for when the next event is. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a great evening. Good night.
Bye, everybody.